if there's something on my mind, especially when it comes to our relationship, that could be better, could be different, that I want to be different, that I want you to understand my perspective from this particular instance, then I need to talk about that. I need to use my words. I need to communicate that. When our expectations become unrealistic, when our expectations are uncommunicated, when our expectations are inflexible, when they are self-centered and self-focused and selfish, that becomes a problem. Now, here's my question. Look at these words up on the screen. Because remember this series. It's not you, it's me. So take an honest look at your marriage. Take an honest look at a certain friendship, or maybe your friendships in general. Take an honest look at your connection with your kids. Take an honest look at your connection with your parents. Take an honest look at your connection with your relationship, this person that you're dating right now. Do any of these words describe that relationship? Even remotely? Then that's a problem. That's something that we need to work on. Because I'm, in essence, allowing my expectations to cause a problem between the two of us. So what do? How can I improve that? How can I do things different? How can I be a better me when it comes to my expectations so that we can be a better we in this relationship? I want to give you a handful of ways to start. Okay? And I would encourage you, write these down, screenshot them, come back and watch this again later. Share this with somebody else. Maybe even watch this together with somebody that you're having some conflict in a relationship with. Kind of work through some of these things together. But if I take an honest look at any particular relationship that I wish was better than what it is now, and I recognize I've had some preconceived ideas in my mind, I had this vision in my mind of what this connection would look like, and it doesn't, then let's start with these steps. Number one, I need to try to empathize. I need to try to empathize with you. I need to make an effort to put myself in your shoes and to see things from your perspective and to understand if you have any expectations and why you have those things. I need to even ask, or at least try to find out, what were your past experiences like in certain relationships? What personality traits do you have? Where are your morals? Where are your values? How those things contributed to how you're approaching this relationship. Where I'm not looking just from my perspective. I need to see things from your perspective. There's a story in the book of John, and we talked about this family last week when we were talking about control, but Jesus had these friends, this brother and two sisters, Lazarus and Martha and Mary. And we talked about Martha and Mary last week, specifically Martha having this desire for control. So if that sounds familiar to you, or if you missed out on that story, go back to last week's lesson and find out about that. But there's another story about this family in the book of John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, those four books talk about Jesus when he was here on this earth. In the book of John, you get this description of Jesus teaching and preaching, and a message comes to him that his friend Lazarus, that he's very close to, is very sick, and Martha and Mary want Jesus to come, show up, and heal him. They know that he has the power to heal. They want him to heal. This is his really good friend, Lazarus. Jesus doesn't go immediately. He doesn't show up in time. Lazarus ends up dying. This is in John chapter 11. And so when Jesus does show up, and Martha is told, hey, Jesus is here, and she comes out to meet him as he's approaching the house. And we don't have every single detail of their conversation with each other, but we get just a small snippet of it. And you got to understand that Martha knew that Jesus could heal him. Martha knew that Jesus cared very much about her brother. And obviously, Martha cared about her brother. And she had sent word to Jesus ahead of time while Lazarus is still alive, while he still could be healed. Jesus, can you please come and heal him? And he didn't show up in time. Lazarus is dead. And she comes up to Jesus when you read in John chapter 11, says, Jesus, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. If you had gotten here in time, he would still be alive today. And you can sense the hurt that she's feeling because she's lost her brother and the frustration, maybe even anger that she's feeling towards Jesus. We sent you word. We sent a message. You didn't come in time. Where were you? And you can kind of give her the benefit of the doubt. I mean, she's grieving. She's frustrated. She's feeling hopeless in this moment. Jesus, where were you? If you had been here, he'd still be alive today. If you're Jesus, how would you react to that? I mean, Jesus could have said, excuse me, Son of God you're talking to here. You might want to change your tone. Jesus could have said, yeah, I did that on purpose because I'm going to raise him from the dead anyway. Spoiler alert, he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead later on in the chapter. Jesus could have said, you know what, this is not the kind of ingredient I wanted, and turned around and walked away. There's all sorts of reactions that Jesus could have had. But if you keep reading, what Jesus did was like, hey, let's go to the cemetery. Let's go to the grave. And they get there, and again, Jesus knew ahead of time. Jesus knows he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knows he's going to bring him back to life. But which he does. He calls Lazarus by name. He comes out. It's this amazing miracle. Everybody's excited. But before he does that, what does he do? Shortest verse in the Bible, John chapter 11, verse 35. Jesus wept. Why? Well, different people have different reasons why they think Jesus wept. I mean, he's here at a grave. His friend has died. He's got other friends who care about Lazarus that are crying as well. It's just an emotional time. And maybe he's just overcome with emotion at the loss of his friend. There's some people that think Jesus is standing at this grave and recognizing that it won't be very long until he experiences death himself. And that's an emotional thing, and he begins to weep. Here's what I think. I think Jesus knew, Jesus expected to raise Lazarus from the dead. But what did he do first? He empathized. I'm going to sit in this grief and this sorrow with you. I'm going to allow myself to experience what it is that you're experiencing. You guys are hurting. You are heartbroken right now, and I'm going to do that with you. I'm going to be that with you. I'm going to sit in your shoes for a few minutes. I'm going to empathize. And folks, that's one of the biggest steps for us in overcoming our tendency to allow our expectations to dominate this relationship. Is to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, to see this connection, this relationship from the other person's perspective, to try to empathize with this other person. That's where I need to start if I'm going to start being a better me and not allowing my expectations to hurt our relationship. I need to put myself in your shoes. Number two, I need to try to keep myself from getting stuck in the comparison trap. There's nothing wrong with setting goals for this relationship. There's nothing wrong with trying to improve myself or trying to improve these different connections that I'm in. There's nothing inherently wrong with even looking at somebody else's marriage, somebody else's family, somebody else's friendship and going, man, that's what I want for myself. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But it can become a trap for me that I can get stuck in when I'm constantly looking at how good I think or how good I perceive everybody else has it instead of us. When I look at somebody else's marriage and think theirs is so much better than mine. When I look at somebody else's family dynamic and think theirs is so much more positive than mine. When I look at other friendships and think they're so much closer to their friends than I am to mine. And while that might even be accurate, I can get trapped by that, and I can get so caught up in focusing on all the good stuff that I see in everybody else. And I don't even focus on what flaws there are, how much work has gone into those things, what kind of things those people have had to work through. I don't pay attention to all that. I just see the picture. I see the picture on social media, or I see the picture that those people are painting while they're out in public with everybody else. And then I look at my own relationship. I look at my own connection, my friendship, my marriage, whatever it is, and I say, I want that. And I become so focused on that I don't even see the good stuff in my own relationship. I don't even see how, okay, there's some things we can work on, but we can work on those things. We can move forward. We can take steps forward. I get so caught up in what I don't have that I don't even pay attention to what I do, to what I do have. Going back again to the book of John, after Jesus was crucified, after he spent 3 days in the grave and rose again, he meets back together with his disciples. And he's having a conversation with one of his disciples named Peter. And Peter, that Brandon talked about in our communion thoughts today, Peter thought that he was going to stay true to Jesus no matter what. He's going to be connected to him. He was going to stick up for him. He was never going to leave his side. And Peter, in the time when Jesus needed somebody for support, needed somebody for help, needed somebody to at least stand up for him and be on his side, Peter turns his back on him. Peter walks away from him. And it was devastating for Peter after he realized his mistake. It was crushing for him. And now Jesus has risen again. And it's this amazing thing, and they're so excited about that. His disciples are so happy for that. And yet Jesus ends up kind of pulling Peter to the side at this one point and has a really hard conversation with him. It's in John chapter 21, the very last chapter of the book of John. And Peter basically is pressing, Jesus is basically pressing Peter and saying, Peter, do you really love me? I mean, I know you say you love me, but do you really love me? Man, it's hard. It's hard for Peter. Because there's probably part of him that thought at one time, yeah, I do. I really do care. And in that moment, he even confesses, I care a lot, Jesus. I don't know that I love you to the extent that you want me to. And it's this hard conversation. It's this difficult dynamic between Peter and Jesus. And so while they're walking along having this conversation, Peter looks over to the side and he sees another disciple of Jesus. We assume that is John. And Peter's having this, it's not conflict, but it's just a difficult situation that he's kind of processing through with Jesus in this moment. And he sees this other disciple, and he's not having the same difficulty with Jesus that Peter's having with Jesus. So what does he do? John chapter 21, verse 21. When Peter saw him, talking about the other disciple, he said, Lord, what about him? What about him? Why don't you get on to him? Let's focus on him for a minute. Where's all his failings? Where's all his mistakes? Let's not focus on me. And maybe Peter's even looking at this other guy who stuck closer to Jesus through the whole crucifixion process than anybody else and going, man, he did something that I didn't do. He's so much better than I am. They're so much closer than Jesus and I are. Peter is stuck in comparing himself to somebody else. And if you continue reading in John chapter 21, Jesus goes on, it's like, this isn't about him right now. This is about you and me. Now, I've got a connection with him, but that has nothing to do with us. And I share that story with you this morning, folks, because I want us to see that even Jesus says, let's work on us. Let's not waste time comparing ourselves and comparing our relationship, Peter, with somebody else. Let's not fall into that trap. And that's what I would encourage us to do as well. Whether it's our marriage, whether it's a dating relationship, whether it's our families, whether it's a friendship, be cautious, be careful about the trap of comparing ourselves to other people. What about them? It's not about them. This is about us. Let's work on us. Number 3, quickly, I need to communicate. I need to talk. I need to use my words. And by that, I don't mean communicating things like, well, he should know what I want. Well, she should understand how that makes me feel. They should have known what I meant. Well, they didn't. Because you didn't communicate. You didn't talk about it. We need to use our words sometimes. God has given us all sorts of talents and abilities and gifts, but nobody that I know, at least nowadays, nobody that I know has God given the ability to be a mind reader. That would be nice. I don't know, it'd be kind of dangerous too, but that would be an awesome skill to have. But none of us have that ability. I don't have it and you don't have it. So if there's something on my mind, especially when it comes to our relationship, that could be better, could be different, that I want to be different, that I want you to understand my perspective from this particular instance, then I need to talk about that. I need to use my words. I need to communicate that.